Yes, I mean, I totally agree with everything you say with that. And I'll go a step further. Leadership is an art. It really is. There is no direct science to it. There's no handbook that answers all questions and is your solution to all problems as it relates to leadership. Leadership evolves and develops with experience. It really does. Um, you can gain a lot of background knowledge. You can establish a pretty firm foundation from reading books, from having a guidance given to you from others, from kind of having a little bit more of insight into the art of leadership. Right? It's very similar to imagine you're going to paint your first portrait, right? And prior to you doing so, you get on YouTube and you start watching tutorials and instructional videos. You start looking at accomplished painters, and you watch them paint on a canvas. You try and pick up little nuances and different types of unique techniques and methods that they use. But none of that will substitute their experience. Their ability to move the brush in a way that only comes from 20 years of other portraits, of poor products that were built upon from years and years of practice, years and years of paint on canvas. The same is for leadership. You can read books, you can do a lot of things to learn from other people's mistakes, but you don't know what your own mistakes will be until you're in those shoes. You just don't. I can think in my experience, and I've been in several leadership roles, both in military, law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and currently in my role now as a unit chief over a number of personnel. Personalities. When you lead in a role that the primary, right, and that's the key thing, the primary resource is a human being or a group of human beings or a team of human beings or an organization of human beings, your leadership style has to adapt to that. It's much different than you being a leader in a manufacturing plant in which the human aspect is just the driving force behind the end product, right? So like you're managing a production line, and at the end of the day, it's X amount of widgets that needs to make it out of the door onto trucks to turn a profit, right? In my role, and in many of my coworkers' roles, the end product is, the person. You build the person, and they are the ones that achieve the result. But there's a direct correlation. It depends on the training, the experience, and the leadership of whether you even get to that end product. And the same is true in a sense when you're managing a production line, or at least I would imagine that. I've never had any experience managing a production line in that sense, and you can quantify what I do and what my coworkers do in the sense of a end product, right? But I can tell you, we're not looking at tangible items. Everything that we manage is all intellectual, so to speak. It's going to be the skill sets that are involved that produce a result that ultimately contributes to the end result. So we're always looking at intellect, right? Creativity. These are the things that we're managing. Abilities, communication. We're looking at a lot of different methods and skill sets to research and to take those same analytics and apply it towards furthering intelligence gathering, and then ultimately getting to a point where you're outsmarting another human being. So that when you really look at it, leadership in the sense of managing human capital in this profession, in the profession that I'm in, is managing human beings to outsmart other human beings. And in order to do that, in order for you to manage or lead those types of assets, right, that type of organization, you have to know your people. You have to truly care about your people, because if you don't care about your people and you're only focused on the mission and you're only focused on numbers and you quantify a lot of of things that should never be quantified, you've lost already. You've failed as a leader before you've even begun. And that's the problem with a lot of what we see today, and not just in federal law enforcement or law enforcement at large. Large organizations that have the human being as the capital asset, you have managers that are used to a different structure, right? A different type of management style, leadership style, and they adapt that to managing or leading humans. And a lot of folks do not appeal to that, right? They're not motivated, right? A good leader that's managing or leading human capital assets should be able to motivate people. And part of that is knowing your people, caring about your people. You have to talk to them. You have to talk about your folks and genuinely care about the things that drive them, the problems that they're experiencing in their personal lives and their professional lives, the things that they want to learn, and things that just generally interest them, right? In the work that we do on the federal law enforcement side, if someone does not want to work fraud investigations, if that's something that they really don't have the confidence in doing, or they just don't have the general interest in doing it, and you place them in fraud investigations, the end product or the quantifiable result is going to suffer, right? And there's no way of just forcing that to continue to get a better product. You're much better off moving that human capital asset into something that they're going to enjoy and put forth a lot more effort, right? That's the motivation part. That's your job as a leader or a manager, of knowing where that person wants to be and capitalizing on their own interests, right? It's not going to work every single time. You're not going to have folks doing what they want to do all the time. That is absolutely impossible. It's ludicrous to think that you're going to have every person that's within your organization doing exactly what they want to do all the time. But I can tell you, you can take someone that is miserable in doing what they want to do and give them something that gives them some type of satisfaction, and you will see a positive result. The worst type of leader in this structure is the one that walks into the office, closes the door, reads reports, looks at numbers, and basically sets guidelines and a kind of like a suspense state, quarterly objectives, right? Numbers, statistics, the CompStat program, which is great when measuring results from a standpoint of regional management, like a mayor or a police chief that needs to look at, hey, last year at this time, how many homicides, rapes, sexual assaults, and UCR crimes did we have? And now, today, after implementing X, Y, and Z, how many UCR crimes, murders, rapes, aggravated assaults do we have? That's a quantitative process to determine whether your strategies that you've implemented are successful. Completely different than a leadership strategy that motivates your people and moves them towards a common goal or result as a direct correlation to their strengths, their interests, and just overall mental health. So I say all this to say leadership is an art, and the more that you're managing human beings, the more you have to practice that art, the more you have to expound on steering away from the quantitatives and really moving into the psychology of your folks. You don't have to be a psychology major. You don't have to sit here and know every single thing of what's going on. And you certainly don't need to be this mushy, lovey guy. That's what a lot of folks, type A personalities exist in law enforcement. I don't think there's any argument in that. I will say that to be an effective leader, you don't have to be mushy and get all in depth on everyone's personal lives and kind of have an excuse for everyone when they're underperforming, and hand out lollipops and gold stars. That's not what it's about at all. because you can have the detrimental effect going in that route as well. The two sides are drastic, right? You don't want to go too far on the side of where you're just overly enabling your people to the point where you're applauding just expected, what's the word I'm looking for? Expected results, I guess. But you also don't want to go on the other side where you're not commending them or giving them any type of appreciation or recognition for work that would be, on the more intermediate or advanced level, or where they've put in a lot of hours and they've come to a result that normally you wouldn't get if they didn't have their own internal motivation. So you got to weigh that and balance it. People want to be appreciated. And I think that's the last thing that I'll say on the matter of adopting a leadership style that is more conducive to managing people. Make them feel like they're appreciated in every sense of the word, right? Make them feel they're appreciated. Every single person that you manage has some type of value to the team. They do. And you may not want that person, to do something in a way that is only conducive to what they want, or you may want that person to kind of contribute in a different ways to get the end results or to get the statistics you're looking for. Yes, it's always going to work. But the best advice that I've ever heard, and this resonates all the time, is don't expect you in other people, right? And that's the mistake that we always make. Don't look at other people and compare them to you. Don't look at other people and compare them to others. Look at them, find their strengths, and see how you can adapt that to the mission.